You know the loud money, the names that scream from the side of a race car, the logos stitched onto every handbag and every watch. But the richest families in Asia do not scream. They whisper. They own the bank your money sits in, the noodles in your cupboard, the mall you shopped in last weekend, the electricity in the wall, and almost none of them have a face you would recognize. This is Asian Dynasty, and today we are counting down 12 billionaire dynasties so quiet, so deliberately hidden that even people who follow money have never heard their names. 12 families, hundreds of billions of dollars, and a pattern hiding underneath all of it that almost nobody talks about. We start near the bottom, and I promise you, the higher we climb on this list, the stranger and more powerful it gets. By the end, you will be looking at a single family worth nearly $50 billion, whose fortune sits in plain sight every single day in your pocket. Let's begin. Number 12. The next family quietly owns one of the most famous department stores in the world. It sits in the heart of London. Millions of tourists walk through its doors every year, and not 1 in 1,000 knows the owners are Thai. This is the Chirathivat family of Thailand, worth around $8.6 billion. Their empire is called Central Group, and it began with a single tiny shophouse in Bangkok, opened by an immigrant named Chirathivat. Today, Central is the biggest mall developer in Thailand, but the family did something almost no one noticed. They bought Selfridges in London. They bought Kadoorie in Berlin. They bought Rinascente in Italy. A family from a Bangkok corner shop now owns the grand old temples of European luxury. Even after a Saudi fund bought into Selfridges, the Thai family kept control. They did not buy a logo. They bought the buildings the logos live in. That is the quietest kind of power there is. Number 11. He arrived in a new country at 12 years old, speaking almost no English, and went to work selling shoes. That boy was Henry Tsai Sr., and the family he founded is now the richest in the Philippines, worth around $11.8 billion. His company started as a single shoe store called Shoe Mart. From shoes, he built SM, an empire of malls, banks, and property, including the Mall of Asia, one of the largest shopping malls on earth. When Henry Tsai died, he left 6 children, now called the Tsai-blings, who run the whole machine together. A man who started by selling shoes one pair at a time built a country's largest fortune, and he kept his head down the entire way up. Number 10. There is a very good chance this next family has fed you, and you never knew their name. This is the Salim family of Indonesia, worth around $13.6 billion. Their company, Indofood, is the largest instant noodle maker on the planet. If you have ever eaten a packet of Indomie, you have handed money to this dynasty. The founder, Sudono Salim, came from China with nothing and built one of the biggest conglomerates in Southeast Asia. In 1998, riots swept Indonesia and the family's home was burned. Many thought they were finished. His son Anthony Salim quietly rebuilt the entire empire from the ashes. Most billionaires want you to know their name. This family was happy to just feed half the world in silence. Number 9. The next dynasty does not own one giant company. It owns 2, and both of them are among the most powerful financial institutions in an entire country. This is the Tsai family of Taiwan, and the 2 branches together control somewhere around $25 billion. The patriarch, Tsai Tsai, built one of the largest insurance empires in the country, selling protection to millions of ordinary families. Then, the dynasty split it. One branch runs Cathay Financial, the other runs Fubon Financial. In 2025, the Fubon brothers alone were the richest people in all of Taiwan, worth nearly $14 billion. Think about that. A family so large it became 2 of the biggest banks in Taiwan, run by cousins, sitting at the very top of the rich list. When one Tsai is not number 1, another Tsai usually is. Number 8. This next family has been in business for 128 years. They made the soap that washed a nation, the ballot boxes that built its democracy, and parts for the rockets it sent to the moon. This is the Godrej family of India, worth somewhere around $16 billion across its branches. In 1918, during a pandemic, Godrej made the world's first soap from vegetable oil instead of animal fat. When India became independent, Godrej built the steel ballot boxes used in the nation's first free elections. And today, Godrej Aerospace builds components that have flown on India's missions to the moon and to Mars, from your bathroom soap to a Mars orbiter. In 2024, after more than a century together, the family gently split the empire in 2, without a courtroom and without a war. That, in the billionaire world, might be the rarest feat of all. Number 7. The next family has kept the lights on in one of the most crowded cities on Earth for more than a century. This is the Kadoorie family of Hong Kong, worth around $18.5 billion. They are not originally from China at all. They are a Baghdadi Jewish family who arrived in Asia in the 1880s and never left. Their company CLP supplies electricity to around 80% of Hong Kong. They also own the legendary Peninsula Hotels with their famous fleet of green Rolls-Royces. This family powered Hong Kong through war, occupation, and decades of upheaval, and quietly rebuilt every single time. When a whole city flips a light switch, it is touching this family's fortune, and it has no idea. We are now halfway up the list, and here is a question to sit with while we climb. How is it possible to be worth tens of billions of dollars and still walk through an airport completely unrecognized? Tell me in the comments which of these names you had actually heard before, because from here, the numbers get serious. Number 6. The next founder sold biscuits door to door as a teenager. He died one of the richest men his country had ever produced. This is the Widjaja family of Indonesia, worth around $18.9 billion. The founder, Chipta Widjaja, came from China as a boy and started by selling biscuits in the streets of Makassar. He built that into Sinar Mas, a giant in paper, palm oil, property, and finance. His paper company became one of the largest on the planet. When he died at the age of 98, he left behind a sprawling empire and a small army of children to run it. From a basket of biscuits to one of the biggest paper fortunes in the world. The product changed. The quiet did not. Number 5. The next dynasty turned gold into one of the most valuable jewelry empires on Earth, then quietly reshaped the skyline of Hong Kong. This is the Cheng family, worth around $22 billion. The founder, Cheng Yu-tung, started as an apprentice in a small gold shop called Chow Tai Fook and married the owner's daughter. He turned that shop into the largest jewelry retailer in the world, with thousands of stores, and then built New World Development, one of Hong Kong's great property giants with hotels and towers across the city. In recent years, the property side has battled serious debt, a reminder that even empires this size are never truly safe. But the gold business they started still glitters in thousands of stores. They sold the dream of gold to millions, while keeping themselves almost invisible. Number 4. This next family is worth around $30 billion on paper, but their single most important asset has been valued at more than $100 billion, and almost no one outside India knows their name. This is the Mistry family, and their company Shapoorji Pallonji is over 160 years old. They built some of Mumbai's most iconic landmarks, but their real secret is this. The Mistrys quietly own the largest single chunk of Tata Sons, the holding company behind the gigantic Tata Empire. The people who make everything from steel to Jaguar cars. That stake alone has been valued at well over $100 billion. The patriarch, Pallonji Mistry, was so private he was nicknamed the Phantom of Bombay House. A man who helped control India's biggest conglomerate and almost never spoke a word in public. Number 3. The next family makes a drink you have almost certainly held in your hand, and they own more than half of it. This is the Yoovidhya family of Thailand, worth somewhere around $36 billion. The founder, Chaleo Yoovidhya, was the son of poor Chinese immigrants who raised ducks and sold antibiotics. He created an energy drink called Krating Dang. Then an Austrian businessman tasted it, partnered with him, and together they turned it into Red Bull. The family still holds 51% of Red Bull, billions of cans a year, sold in nearly every country on Earth, and the family behind it is so private that most people could not name a single one of them. They gave the world wings, and then they vanished behind the curtain. Number 2. The next dynasty might be the most powerful family in all of Southeast Asia, and it all started with a small shop selling seeds. This is the Chearavanont family of Thailand, worth around $42 billion, making them one of the richest families in all of Asia. Their company CP Group began in 1921 as a tiny shop selling vegetable seeds to farmers. Today, it is one of the largest producers of animal feed and livestock in the world. They own the 7-Eleven stores across Thailand. They own a giant telecom company. They have huge investments in China. When you trace the food on tables across Asia, an astonishing amount of it runs back to this one family. They feed nations, they connect nations, and they do it from the shadows. Number 1. And now, the quietest giant of them all. A family worth nearly $50 billion, whose fortune is sitting in plain sight, in the pocket of almost everyone watching this. This is the Hartono family of Indonesia, the richest family in the entire country, worth around $48 billion. Their story began with cigarettes. Their father founded a small clove cigarette company called Jarum. In 1963, the factory burned to the ground. The two brothers, Budi and Michael, rebuilt it from nothing. But here is the move that made them legends. After Indonesia's financial crisis, they bought a huge stake in Bank Central Asia, the largest private bank in the country, when it was cheap. Today, that bank is worth well over $100 billion, one of the most valuable companies in all of Southeast Asia, serving tens of millions of customers. And there is one more detail that tells you everything. Michael Hartono, in his late 70s, won a medal in the card game bridge at the Asian Games. A man worth tens of billions competing for his country at a card table. They have been the richest family in Indonesia for well over a decade, and they have done it almost completely out of view. So what is the pattern? 12 families, 6 countries, hundreds of billions of dollars, and almost none of them famous. Look closely, and you will see the same blueprint over and over. Nearly every one of these dynasties started with one immigrant and one tiny thing. A seed shop, a shoe store, a basket of biscuits, a clove cigarette. They did not chase attention, they chased ownership. They bought the bank, the building, the brand underneath the brand, and then they stayed quiet on purpose for generations, because here is what these families understood, that the loud money never will. Fame is expensive, it paints a target on your back. Real power prefers the dark. The point was never to be seen owning it. The point was simply to own it quietly and to still own it 100 years from now. The loudest names in the world are usually renting their wealth. The quietest ones own it outright. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these 12 dynasties shocked you the most? And whose name had you genuinely never heard before today? Tell me down in the comments. And if you want to see how one of these hidden families built it all, one quiet decision at a time, go watch the video on screen right now. This has been Asian Dynasty. Stay curious.